Oh, new house? Oh,
New house.
New
house, new walls.
Oh.
For one night only. Coming to you from Edinburgh.
That does look like an extremely Scottish couch.
I mean, that is fair.
It's a tiny, tiny little armchair with in a hideous plaid with a different kind of hideous plaid cushion upon it.
I don't know. I kind of enjoy a hideous plaid.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot to love about this whole setup. Yay, hideous plaid. How are y'all? Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hi. I think hideous plaid might be my new D&D character.
That's my
Be a good band. Hi, Ian.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me. Okay. Quick question. Do you think Marina Coyle is a better name for a drag queen or a band?
Do I think what? What?
Marina Coyle. Is that a better name?
Marina Coyle.
Marina Coyle. Is that better for a drag queen or like a drag name or a band name?
Marina Coyle.
Yes.
Band name, definitely.
Okay.
I concur.
Why?
Just for my files. For a project. Do not ask what the project is.
Unless you are considering it as a drag queen name, in which case, like, go the fuck ahead. That is brilliant and excellent, and I support you in it.
Thank you. I'm workshopping.
Do you have a drag name, Rory?
Oh man, yes, I do. Precious calories.
Oh,
sorry, precious carbohydrates. That was
That is excellent. That is excellent. Hey, Lyric. Very nice.
Yeah, her whole thing is stress eating.
I got here right in time for Rory's drag name. Clearly, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Exactly the right time.
She's gonna have a whole routine based around like lip syncing while stress eating. Like total eclipse of the heart.
Oh no.
There's an incredible burlesque dancer called Carmen up in Newcastle, and I saw her do the most amazing performance once where she like came on in these like kind of ratty pajamas with like a pint of ice cream, like a pint of like semi-melted ice cream, and she was like doing this incredible kind of like lip syncing performance in between like kind of like really messily like crying and eating. The ice cream was everywhere. It was like all down her pajamas. But I can't remember. Like I'm assuming that at some point she like took her clothes off, but I don't remember that bit. I just remember her being like, ice cream everywhere.
The little pasties were just sad smiley faces.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Rory, I did take some burlesque classes and learn how to make nipple pasties. So if you want next event, you know, we can do some homemade nipple pasty stuff if you have extra leather hanging around.
All right, excellent.
He has so much leather hanging around. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, not in a sexy way, just like piles and piles of fabric for no reason. In my home.
I mean, it could turn into a sexy way. You never know what he's going to do with that leather.
Oh, well, I hang the sexy leather separately. It's a whole other thing.
Leather enthusiast, I love you, but you're bringing me down.
Yeah, you should talk to someone about your craftaholism.
It has gotten better. There was a time when it was like I had like just bits of lumber for carving and stuff, and was storing them under the bed. And it got to where the mattress was starting to get lumpy just from the.
So there's a time frame to this. There's a finely tuned time frame to this. Rory finds something. He is very, very committed to that physical object, and then I have to wait 2 years, and then I'm like, I want us to get rid of this thing, and he's like, yeah, sure, which is great because now we don't have a dressmaker's mannequin haunting my dreams because it's in my fucking bedroom every night.
Oh dear God, that's not a thing you necessarily want in your bedroom, man.
2 years, 2 years, you guys.
In my defense, I did tape a picture of our friend Ruth's face to the top of it to make it less threatening.
Oh,
I don't know if
well,
that's a-
Catherine, I don't know what you're talking about.
I
You're
don't know if
so
that's more or less threatening, like seeing your friend's face on this like hollow body.
Yup.
Just a black silhouette with a piece of paper sellotaped to the top of it. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And some of her hair, and I whispered a secret into it.
Stabbed it through the heart with a needle.
Then
And
saying
then-
total eclipse of the heart, and my heart will go on while eating ice cream and stripping at the same time while looking at it.
Sounds about right.
Speaking of ice cream, we had some very delicious ice cream tonight. Martin, the blessed Martin, picked up a half block from Mary's Milk Bar, and it was salted caramel, and it was bergamot and fig.
Oh.
What in the name of
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I
Yes.
felt like the fanciest bitch. The fanciest bitch. Martin's here. Hi, Martin. Joke's on all of us. He's in the room. I'm sitting in one comfortable chair and I'm using the other comfortable chair to prop my Storytime rig on. So he has nothing to sit on but spikes. So
Little spikes.
two
I mean-
spikes would be an indulgence.
Don't you have spikes on every surface that is not a comfortable chair as well?
That's
Now that's a
is that
separate.
what everyone does.
Are you people designing like Tory infrastructure?
Oh, Hi, Katie. Katie, oh my God, I'm so sorry about your poem. I forgot about your poem until literally just now. Can I give it to you on Monday?
Yes.
It's been a day. And I knew which one I was going to do as well. Motherfuck. Okay. What time is it? How long do we have until the story time?
It's like now.
Okay.
We could wait.
We can wait.
Yeah.
We can absolutely wait.
Katie, absolutely.
Of course.
Is
I mean,
that
storytime doesn't begin till Katie says storytime, so it's really.
well?
It's very true.
We
I
must
don't-
wait.
I don't have, so my laptop is elsewhere, and I need my laptop because I know the poem, and I know the one that I want, and I can't quite remember like the title so I need to look at my collection, and my collection is like 1,000 poems long, so I need to look at my spreadsheet. So
First of all, I love that you have a spreadsheet of poems. Yeah.
if anyone would ever like access to my poem like shared sheet, send me your email addresses and I will share it with you.
Happy birthday to Katie and the rest of us, indeed.
That is my present to you, my darling. It's free access to my poetry collection.
I mean, my poetry collection to my granddad has like 80% of the poems that you've been sending out in the Storytime emails in.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I love this poem, and I love this poem, and I love this poem.
That makes me very happy. Okay, Katie, my darling. Katie, sweetheart, babe, my love. I owe you a poem. Okay? I owe you one poem. But actually, can you hear something? Can you hear what's
Story time. I'd like to thank Lyric for being me yesterday. It was adorable and I loved it.
Wasn't it though?
Thank you.
It was very, very cute. There was some very like cute squared action happening all up in that place. Now. Hi Nick. Hi Malcolm.
I got a 3D Malcolm today. It was so exciting.
Oh, does some reason when you said that, I thought, like, I was thinking like something that you like printed from a 3D printer, like you printed yourself an album.
Oh yeah.
It even has a sound box in it.
I'd print myself one of those, you know what I'm saying? Right, right. Listen, everyone. I'm muting you all. This is all suddenly got way too sexy. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Chapter 3. Anouk. Wednesday, 12th of December. Well, that's more than a week of lessons so far, and already she says she can see a change. I've been learning more of the Mexican stuff, names and stories and symbols and signs. Now I know how to raise the wind with Ehecatl, the changing one, and how to invoke Tlaloc for rain, and even how to call down the hurricane to bring revenge on my enemies. Not that I'm thinking of revenge. Chantal and co have been out of school ever since that day at the bus stop. Apparently they've all got it now. Some kind of ringworm, Monsieur Guestin says. But anyway, they have to stay at home until it gets better, in case they infect anyone else. You'd be amazed at the difference it makes to a class of 30 kids when the 4 nastiest people are away. But without Suzanne, Chantal, Sandrine and Danielle, it's actually nice to be at school. No one's it. No one laughs at Mathilde for being fat, and Claude actually answered a question in maths today without stuttering. Today, in fact, I've been working on Claude. He's really nice when you get to know him, although he stammers so badly most of the time that he hardly ever talks to anyone. But I managed to slip a piece of paper marked with a symbol into his pocket, 1 jaguar for bravery, and it might just be that the others are away, but already I think I can see a difference. He's more relaxed now. He sits up instead of slouching, and although his stammer hasn't actually gone, it didn't sound too bad today. Sometimes it gets so bad that his words jam up completely, and he goes red in the face and almost cries, and everyone's embarrassed for him, even the teacher, and can't look, except for Chantal and co, of course. But today he talked more than he ever does normally, and that didn't happen. Not even once. I talked to Mathilde as well today. She's very shy and she doesn't talk much. Wears big black sweaters to hide her shape. Tries to be invisible, hoping that people will leave her alone. They never do. And she moves around with her head down as if she's afraid to catch someone's eye. And it makes her look tubby and awkward and sad. So no one sees that she's got great skin, unlike Chantal, who's getting spots. And her hair is really thick and beautiful. And with the right attitude, she could be too. You should try it, I told her. Surprise yourself. Try what? Said Mathilde, as if to say, why are you wasting your time on me? So I told her some of what Zosie told me. She listened, forgetting to look at the floor. I couldn't do that, she said at last. But I noticed a hopeful look in her eyes, and this morning at the bus stop, I thought she looked different, straighter and more confident. And for the first time since I'd known her, she was wearing something that wasn't black. It was just an ordinary top, but dark red and not too baggy. And I said, that's nice. And Mathilde looked confused, but pleased, and for the first time ever went smiling to school. All the same, it feels kind of weird to be suddenly, well, not popular exactly, but something like it anyway. To have people look at you differently, to be able to change the way they think. How could Maman ever give that up? I wish I could ask her, but I know I can't. I'd have to tell her about Chantal and Co, and about the peg dolls, and Claude and Mathilde, and Rue and Jean-Loup. Jean-Loup was back in school today, looking a bit pale, but cheerful enough. Turns out his illness was only a cold, but his heart thing makes him delicate, and even a cold can be serious. Still, today he was back, taking pictures again, watching the world through his camera. Jean-Loup takes pictures of everyone. Teachers, the janitors, pupils, me. He takes them very fast so that no one has time to change what they're doing. And sometimes this gets him into trouble, especially with the girls who want to be able to primp and pose. And wreck the picture, said Jean-Loup. Why? I said. Because a camera sees more than the naked eye. Even ghosts. Those too. Well, it's funny, I thought. But he's totally right. He's talking about the smoking mirror and how it can show you things that you might not see in the normal way. He doesn't know the old symbols, of course. But perhaps he's been taking pictures for so long that he's learnt Zosie's trick of focusing, of seeing things as they really are and not as people want them to be. That's why he likes the cemetery. He's looking for things the eye doesn't see. Ghost lights, the truth, or something like that. So what do I look like, according to you? He flicked through his gallery of pictures and showed me a shot of myself, taken that break just as I was running out into the yard. It's a bit blurry, I said. My arms and legs were all over the place, but my face was all right and I was laughing. It's you, said Jean-Loup. It's beautiful. Well, I couldn't figure out whether he was being big-headed or whether he just paid me a compliment, so I just ignored it and looked at the rest. There was Mathilde, looking sad and fat, but really quite pretty underneath. And Claude talking to me without the slightest bit of a stammer. And Monsieur Guestin with a funny, unexpected look, as if he was trying to look stern when actually he was laughing inside. And then some pictures of the chocolaterie that Jean-Loup hadn't downloaded yet, that he flicked through too fast to see. Wait a minute, I said. Isn't that Maman? It was, with Rosette. I thought she looked old, and Rosette had moved so that you couldn't really see her face. And now I could see Zosie at her side, not looking like herself at all, with her mouth turned down and an odd kind of something in the eyes. Come on, we'll be late, he said. And then we were running for the bus and off to the cemetery as usual, to feed the cats and to stroll in the lanes under the trees with the brown leaves falling and the ghosts all around. It was getting dark by the time we got there, with the tombs just shapes against the sky. Not much good for photographs, unless you use flash, which Jean-Loup calls lame, but weird and gorgeous all the same, with the Christmas lights further up the butte strung out in a spider's web of stars. Most people never see all this. He was taking pictures of the sky, yellow and grey with the tombs against it like hulks in a derelict boatyard. That's why I like it now, he went on. When it's nearly dark and folk have gone home, and you can really see that it's a cemetery and not just a park filled with famous people. They'll close the gates pretty soon, I said. They do that, you know, to stop vagrants sleeping there. Some still do, though. They climb the wall or they hide away where the gardien doesn't see them. That's what I thought he was, at first. A vagrant getting ready to bunk down for the night, just a shadow behind one of the tombs, wearing one of those big overcoats and a woolly hat pulled over his hair. I touched Zhonglu's arm. He nodded at me. Get ready to run. Not that I was really scared or anything. I don't think you're in any more danger from a homeless person than from someone with a regular house. But no one knew where we were. It was dark, and I knew Zhonglu's mother would have a fit if she knew where he went after school most nights. She thinks he goes to the chess club. I don't think she really knows him at all. So, anyway, there we were, ready to run if the man showed any sign of coming at us. And then he turned and I saw his face. Who? But before I could call out his name, he was gone, slipping away between the tombs, quiet as a cemetery cat and quick as a ghost. Chapter 4. Vian, Thursday, 13th of December. Madame Luzeron came in today, bringing some things for the Advent window. Toy furniture from her old doll's house, packed carefully in shoeboxes lined with tissue paper. There's a 4-poster bed with embroidered hangings and a dining table and 6 chairs. There are lamps and rugs and a tiny gilt mirror and several small china-faced dolls. I can't let you part with these, I said, as she spread the objects out onto the counter. These are antique. They're only toys. Keep them just as long as you like. And so I put them in the house, where another door has opened today. It's a sweet little scene, depicting a small red-headed girl, one of Anouk's peg dolls, standing admiring an enormous pile of matchboxes, each painstakingly wrapped in coloured paper and tied with the very tiniest of bows. Of course, it's Rosette's birthday soon. The party that Anouk has planned so very meticulously is in part a celebration of this, and partly, I sense, an attempt to recreate some possibly imaginary time when Yule meant more than just tinsel and presents, and real life was closer to the intimate, imaginary scenes around the little Advent house than the tawdrier truth of our Paris streets. Children are such sentimentalists. I've tried to curb her expectations, to explain to her that a party is just a party, and that, however lovingly planned, a party cannot bring back the past, or change the present, or guarantee even the smallest shower of snow. But my comments have had no effect on Anouk, apart from the fact that she now discusses all party matters with Zosie rather than with me. In fact, I've noticed that since Zosie moved in, Anouk spends most of her free time with her, up in her rooms, trying on her shoes. I've heard the sound of high heels on wood, sharing private jokes and talking interminably. Of what, I wonder? It's touching, in a way, I think. But there's a part of me, an envious, ungrateful part, that still feels slightly left out in this. Of course, it's wonderful that Zosie is here. She's been such a good friend, has looked after the children, has helped us reinvent the shop and begin to make a living at last. But don't think I'm blind to what's going on. If I look, I can see behind the scenes the subtle gilding of the place, the cluster of bells in the window, the charm that I mistook for a Christmas ornament dangling above the threshold, the signs, the symbols, the figures in the Advent house, the everyday magic I had thought long since abandoned, springing to life in every corner. What harm can there be? I ask myself. It's hardly really magic at all, just a few little charms, a good luck sign or two, the kind of thing to which my mother would not have given a second thought. But I can't help feeling uneasy now. Nothing comes entirely free. Like the boy in the tale who sold his shadow for a promise, if I close my eyes to the terms of the sale, if I buy on credit from the world, soon I'll have to pay the price. And what is it, Zosie? What is your price? I felt increasingly troubled throughout the rest of the afternoon. Something in the air, perhaps, something in the winter light. I found myself wishing for someone, though who it was I could not say. My mother, perhaps, Armand, Framboise, someone simple, someone to trust. Thierry phoned twice, but I screened his calls. He could not begin to understand. I tried to concentrate on work, but for some reason everything went wrong. I heated the chocolate too much or too little, let milk boil, put pepper instead of cinnamon into a batch of hazelnut rolls. By mid-afternoon, my head was aching, and at last I left Zosie in charge and went out for a breath of air. I walked at random, with nowhere in mind. Certainly not Rue de la Croix, although that was where I found myself less than 20 minutes later. The sky was brittle and china blue, but the sun was too low to cast any warmth. I was glad of my coat, mud brown like my boots, and pulled it tighter around my body as I entered the shadows of the lower butte. It was a coincidence, that's all. I hadn't thought of Rue all day. But there he was, outside the flat, in work boots and overalls, a black knitted cap to cover his hair. He had his back to me, but I knew him at once. It's something about the way he moves, deftly but without great haste. The lean, tough muscles in his back and arms flexing as he throws boxes and crates of builder's rubbish into the skip that stands on the curb. I stepped instinctively behind a parked van. The suddenness of seeing Rue, surprise at finding myself there when Zosie had warned me to stay away. These things conspired to make me cautious, and I watched him now from behind the van, invisible in my drab coat, heart punching like a pinball machine. Should I speak to him? I thought. Did I want to speak to him? What was he doing here anyway? A man who hates the city, hates noise, despises wealth and prefers the open sky to a roof. Just then Thierry came out of the house. I sensed tension between them straight away. Thierry looked annoyed. His face was red. He spoke to Rue in a sharp voice and gestured for him to go inside. Rue pretended not to hear. "What are you, deaf or daft?" said Thierry. "We're on a bloody schedule, in case you forgot. And check the levels before you start. Those boards are oak, not half-inch pine wood." "Is that the way you talk to Vianne?" Rue's accent comes and goes with his moods. Today it was almost exotic, a burr of lazy gutturals. dear. Excuse me. Thierry, with his Parisian twang, can barely understand a word. What? Rue made his voice insolently slow. I said, do you talk to Vianne like that? I saw Thierry's face darken a little. Oh no. Yann is the person I'm doing this for. Now I can see what she sees in you. Thierry gave an unpleasant laugh. I'll ask her about it tonight, shall I? As it happens, I'm seeing her then. I'm thinking of asking her out for a meal, somewhere that doesn't serve pizza by the slice. And at that he set off up the street, leaving Rue to make an obscene gesture at his retreating back. Quickly, I ducked round the side of the van, feeling foolish, but not wanting either of them to know I was there. Thierry passed by within 6 feet, features compressed between anger, dislike, and a kind of spiteful satisfaction. It made him look older, a stranger somehow. And for a moment I felt like a child caught looking through a forbidden door. Then he was gone, and Rue was alone. I watched him for a few minutes more. Unobserved, people tend to show unexpected aspects of themselves. I'd seen that already in Thierry as he strode past me up the street. But Rue sat down on the side of the curb and stayed there, not moving, eyes on the ground, looking more tired than anything else, although it's hard to tell with Rue. I ought to go back to the shop, I thought. Anouk would be home in less than an hour. Rosette would need her afternoon snack, and if Thierry was coming round. Instead, I stepped out from behind the van. Rue. He jumped to his feet, briefly unguarded, lit up with that radiant smile of his. Then wariness took over again. Thierry's not here, if that's what you want. I know, I said. The smile returned. Rue, I began. But he held out his arms, and I found myself there as I had before, with my head against his shoulder, and the soft, warm scent of him, something quite separate from the smell of cut wood or polish or sweat, like an eiderdown over us both. Come inside, you're shivering. I followed him in and went upstairs. The flat was unrecognizable, draped in white sheets, still as snow, the furniture piled into corners, the floor a drift of fragrant dust. Freed of Thierry's clutter, I could see how large the flat really was. The high ceilings with their plaster mouldings, the wide doorways, the intricate balconies on the street side. Rue saw me noticing. Rather pleasant, as cages go. Mr. Big spares no expense. I looked at him. You don't like Thierry? And you do? I ignored the jibe. He isn't always so abrupt. He's usually very nice, you know. He must be under stress, or maybe you were winding him up. Or maybe he's nice to important people and says what he likes to those who don't matter. I gave a sigh. I hoped you'd get on. Why do you think I haven't walked out? Or hit the bastard in the face? I looked away and did not answer. The charge between us intensified. I was very conscious of him standing close to me, of the streaks of paint on his overalls. He was wearing a t-shirt underneath, and on a cord around his neck hung a small piece of green river glass. "So what are you doing here?" he said. "Hanging around with a hired help." Oh, Rue, I thought. What can I say? That it's because of that secret place just above your collarbone where my forehead fits so perfectly? That it's because I know not just your favourites, but every twist and turn of you? That you have a tattoo of a rat on your left shoulder that I've always pretended not to like? That your hair is the colour of fresh paprika and marigolds, and that Rosette's quick little drawings of animals remind me so much of the things you make from wood and stone that often it hurts me to look at her and to think of her never knowing you? Kissing him would just make it worse. And so I kissed him. Little soft kisses all over his face, pulling off his cap and my overcoat, finding his mouth with such scalding relief. For the first few minutes, I was blind, beyond thought. Only my mouth existed just then. Only my hands on his skin were real. The rest of me was imaginary, coming to life at the touch of him, little by little, like melting snow. And in a daze we kissed again, standing in that empty room with the scent of oil and sawdust in the air, and the white sheets spread like the sails of a ship. Somewhere at the back of my mind, I was aware that this had not been the plan, that this would complicate everything beyond measure. But I couldn't stop. I'd waited so long, and now I froze. Now what? I thought. Now we were back together? What then? Would that help Anouk and Rosette? Would that banish the kindly ones? Would our love put even a single meal on the table, or still the wind for even a day? Better you'd stayed asleep, Vianne, said my mother's voice inside my head. And better, if you care for him. This isn't what I came for, Rue. With an effort, I pushed him away. He did not try to hold me back, but watched me instead as I pulled on my coat and straightened my hair with shaking hands. "Why are you here?" I said fiercely. "Why did you stay in Paris at all with everything that's happening?" "You didn't tell me to leave," he said. "Besides, I wanted to know about Thierry. I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I don't need your help," I said. "I'm fine. You saw that in the chocolate shop." Rue smiled. "Why are you here?" Over the years, I have learned to lie. I've lied to Anouk, lied to Thierry, and now I have to lie to Rue. If not for him, then for myself. Because I knew that if any more of that sleeping part of me were to awaken, then Thierry's embraces would not only be unwelcome, but wholly intolerable, and that all my plans of the past 4 years would blow away like leaves on the wind. I looked at him. "I'm asking you now. I want you to leave. This whole thing isn't fair on you. You're waiting for something that can't possibly happen, and I don't want you to get hurt anymore." "I don't need help," he mocked. "I'm fine. Please, Rue." "You said you loved him. This proves you don't." "It isn't that easy." "Why not?" said Rue. "Because of the shop? You'd marry him for a chocolate shop." You make it sound so ridiculous. But where were you 4 years ago? And what makes you think you can come back now, expecting to find that nothing's changed? You haven't changed so much, Vian. He put out a hand to touch my face. The static between us was gone now, to be replaced by a dull, sweet ache. And if you think I'm leaving now, I have to think of my children, Prue. This isn't just about me. I took his hand and squeezed it hard. If today proves anything, then it's this. I can't be alone with you anymore. I don't trust myself. I don't feel safe. Is safety so very important then? If you had children, you'd know it was. Well, that was the greatest lie of all. But I had to say it. He has to leave. For my own peace of mind, if not for his, for the sake of Anouk and Rosette. They were both upstairs when I got in, Anouk already tearing up to Zosie's room in a clatter of excitement about something that had happened at school. For once, I was glad to be left alone, and I went to my own room for half an hour to read my mother's cards again and to calm my agitated nerves. The Magus, the Tower, the Hanged Man, the Fool, Death, the Lovers, change. Change. The card shows a wheel, turning remorselessly round and round. Popes and paupers, commoners and kings hold on desperately to its spokes, and through the primitive design, I can make out their expressions, the open mouths, the complacent smiles turning to wails of terror as the wheel runs its course. I look at the lovers. Adam and Eve, standing naked, hand in hand. Eve's hair is black. Adam's is red. There is no great mystery to this. The cards are printed in 3 colours only, yellow, red, and black, which, with the background of white, make up the colours of the 4 winds. Why have I drawn these cards again? What message do they hold for me? At 6, Thierry phoned to ask me out. I told him I had a migraine, and by then it was almost true. My head throbbed like a sick tooth, and the thought of eating made it worse. I promised I'd see him tomorrow instead, and tried to put Rue out of my mind. But whenever I tried to get to sleep, I felt the touch of his lips on my face. And when Rosette awoke and began to cry, I heard his accents in her voice and saw shadows of him in her green-grey eyes. Chapter 5. Anouk. Friday, 14th of December. 10 days to go before Christmas Eve. 10 days before the Big Bang. And what I thought would be simple enough is actually turning out to be kind of complicated. First, there's Thierry, and there's Rue. Oh boy, what a mess. Ever since Sunday's talk with Zosie, I've been trying to think of the best thing to do. My first impulse was to go to Rue straight away and tell him everything, but Zosie says that would be a mistake. In a story, it would be easy enough. Tell Rue he's a father, get rid of Thierry, then things can go back to the way they were and everyone can get together on Christmas Eve for a massive celebration. End of story. Piece of cake. In real life, it's not so simple. In real life, Zosie says, some men can't cope with fatherhood, especially with a child like Rosette. What if he just can't handle that? What if he's ashamed of her? I hardly slept at all last night. Seeing Rue in the cemetery made me wonder if Zosie was right and that he didn't want to see us at all. But then why keep working for Thierry? Does he know or doesn't he? I went over and over it and still it wouldn't make sense to me. And so today I made up my mind and went to find him at Rue de la Croix. I arrived at the house at about 3:30, feeling all wound up and shivery inside. I'd skipped the last lesson of school. It was a study period, and if anyone mentions it, I'll just say I was in the library. Jean-Loup would have known if he'd been there, but Jean-Loup was ill again today. And with the sign of one monkey drawn on my hand, I slipped away without anyone noticing. I took the bus to Place de Clichy and walked from there to Rue de la Croix, a broad, quiet street overlooking the cemetery, with big old stucco houses like a row of wedding cakes all along one side, and a high brick wall on the other. Thierry's apartment is on the top floor. He actually owns the whole building, 2 whole floors and a basement flat. It's the biggest apartment I've ever seen, though Thierry doesn't think it's big at all and complains about the size of the rooms. When I got there, the place looked empty. There was scaffolding on one side of the building and cellophane sheets over the doors. There was a man in a hard hat sitting outside having a smoke, but I could tell it wasn't Rue. I went in. I took the stairs. From the first landing, I could hear machine sounds and smell the sweet and somehow horsey scent of freshly cut wood. Now I could hear voices too. Well, one voice, Thierry's voice, raised above the sound of work. I went up the last few stairs, snowy with sawdust and shavings of wood. The door was shielded in cellophane, and I parted it and looked inside. Rue was wearing a filter mask and using the machine to sand down the bare floorboards. The smell of raw wood was everywhere. Thierry was standing above him in a grey suit and a yellow hard hat, and that look he gets when Rosette won't use a spoon or spits out her food at table. As I watched, Rue turned off the machine and pulled down his mask. He looked tired and not too happy. Thierry looked at the floorboards and said, "Vac up the dust and get the polisher. I want you to get at least 1 coat of varnish down before you leave." "You must be joking. I'll be here till midnight." "I don't care," said Thierry. "I'm not going to waste another day. We need to be finished by Christmas Eve." And then he walked straight out and past me down the stairs to the first floor. I was standing behind the dust sheet and he didn't see me as he went by. But I saw him quite close up, and there was a look on his face I didn't like at all. It was a kind of smug look, not quite a smile with too many teeth. As if Santa Claus, instead of giving out presents for all the kids, had decided to keep them all for himself this year. And just then I hated Thierry. Not just because he'd shouted at Rue, but because he thought he was better than Rue. You could see it in the way he looked at him, in the way he stood over him like someone getting a shoe shine. And in his colours there was something more, something that might have been envy or worse. Rue was sitting cross-legged on the floor, the filter mask around his neck and a bottle of water in his hand. "Anouk," he grinned. "Is Vian here?" I shook my head. His face fell. "Why didn't you come? You said you would." "I've been busy, that's all." He jerked his chin up at the room, all gift-wrapped in builder's cellophane. Do you like it? Meh, I said. No more moving? Room of your own? Near the school and everything? Sometimes I wonder why adults make such a big deal out of education when it's obvious that kids know far more about life than they do. Why do they make it so complicated? Why can't they keep it simple for once? I heard what Thierry said to you. He shouldn't talk to you like that. He thinks he's so much better than you. Why don't you tell him to get lost? Who shrugged. I'm getting paid. Besides, I saw the gleam in his eyes. I may get my own back sometime soon. I sat down next to him on the floor. He smelt of sweat and of the sawdust he'd been working in. His arms and hair were dusted with it. But something about him was different. I couldn't quite figure it out. A kind of funny, bright, hopeful look that hadn't been there at the chocolaterie. So what can I do for you, Anouk? Tell Lou he's a father. Yeah, right. Like so many things, it sounds easy. When it comes to the practical, I wet the tip of my finger and drew the sign of Lady Moon Rabbit in the dust on the floor. That's my sign, Zosie says. A circle with a rabbit inside. It's supposed to look like the new moon, and it's the sign of love and new beginnings. And I thought that since it's my sign, then perhaps it would work better on Rue. What's wrong? He smiled. Cat got your tongue. Perhaps it was that word, cat. Or perhaps it's because I've never been much good at lying, especially not to the people I love. In any case, I blurted it out. The question that had been burning a hole in the roof of my mouth ever since my talk with Zosie. Do you know you're Rosette's dad? He stared at me. Say what? He said. There was no mistaking the shock in his eyes. So he hadn't known. But from his face, he wasn't what you'd call pleased either. I looked down at the sign of Lady Moon Rabbit and drew the broken cross of red monkey Tezcatlipoca next to it in the flowery dust. I know what you're thinking. She's kind of small for a 4-year-old. She dribbles a bit. She wakes up at night. And she's always been slow with some things, like learning to talk and using a spoon. But she's really funny and really sweet. And if you give her a chance... Now his face was the colour of the sawdust. He shook his head like it was a bad dream or something that he could just shake away. 4, he said. It's her birthday next week. I smiled at him. I knew you didn't know. I said, Rue would never have left us like that, not if he'd known about Rosette. And I told him then about when she was born, and about the little cloperie and Les Laveuses, and how ill she had been at first, and how we'd fed her from an eyedropper, and about our move to Paris and everything that happened there. Wait a minute, said Rue. Does Vianne know you're here? Does she know you're telling me this? I shook my head. No one knows. He thought about that one for a while, and slowly his colours went from quiet blues and greens to splashy reds and oranges, and his mouth turned down, hard, not like the Rue I knew at all. So, all this time she never said a thing. I had a daughter and I never even knew. He always sounds more from the Midi when he's angry. And right then his accent was so thick that it could have been a foreign language altogether. Well, maybe she didn't get the chance. He made an angry sound in his throat. Maybe she thinks I'm not cut out to be a father. I wanted to hug him, to make him feel better, to tell him we loved him, all of us. But he was too crazy to listen just then. I could see that even without the smoking mirror. And all at once I thought that it might have been a mistake to tell him like that I should have listened to Zosie's advice. Then suddenly he stood up, as if he'd come to a decision, scuffing the sign of Red Monkey Tezcatlipoca in the dust at his feet. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the joke. Pity you couldn't have made it last a bit longer, at least until I'd finished the flat. He pulled the filter mask from around his neck and threw it savagely at the wall. You can tell your mother I'm through. She's safe. She's made her choice, she can stick with it. And while you're at it, you can tell Le Creuset that he could do his own decorating from now on. I'm off. Where? I said. Home, said Roux. What, back to your boat? What boat? He said. You said you had a boat, I reminded him. Yeah, well. He looked at his hands. You mean you don't have a boat? I said. Of course I do. It's a terrific boat. He was looking away and his voice was flat. I made the smoking mirror with my fingers and saw his colours, all mixed up in angry reds and cynical greens, and thought, oh, please, Roux, just this once. Where is it? I said. Port de l'Arsenal. How come you're there? I was just passing through. Well, that was another lie, I thought. It takes a long time to bring a boat upriver from the town, months even. And you don't just pass through Paris either. You have to book with the Port de Plaisance. You have to pay for a mooring. And that made me wonder, if Roux had a boat, why he'd be working here for Thierry. But if he was going to lie, I thought, then how could I tell him anything? The whole of my plan, such as it was, had been kind of based on the assumption that Roux would be really pleased to see me, and that he'd say how much he'd missed me and Maman, and how hurt he'd been to find out she was marrying Thierry. And then I'd tell him about Rosette, and he'd understand then how we couldn't leave, and he'd live with us in the Chocolaterie, so that Maman wouldn't have to marry Thierry, and we could be a family. Come to think of it, it sounded kind of cheesy now. But what about me and Rosette? I said. We're having a party on Christmas Eve. I took out his card from my school bag and held it out. You've just got to be there, I told him desperately. Look, you've got an invitation and everything. He gave a nasty laugh. Who, me? You must be thinking of someone else's father. Oh, boy, I thought. What a mess this is. It seemed like the more I tried to talk to him, the angrier he seemed to get. And my new system, which has already worked changes for Nico and Mathilde and Madame Luzeron, doesn't work on Roux at all. If only I'd just finished his doll. And then I had an inspiration. Look, I said, you've got dust in your hair. I reached up to brush it off. Ouch, said Roux. Sorry, I said. Please, can I see you tomorrow? Even if it's only to say goodbye. He paused for such a long time that I was sure he was going to refuse. Then he sighed. I'll meet you in the cemetery at 3 o'clock. By Delida's tomb. Okay, I said, and smiled to myself. Roux saw the smile. I'm not staying, he said. Well, that's what you think, Roux, I thought. And I opened my hand, where 3 red hairs had caught between my fingers. because this time, Rue, who pleases himself, is going to do what I want for a change. This time, it's my turn. I decide. He'll be at our party on Christmas Eve, whatever it takes, whatever it costs. He may not want to, I thought, but he'll come, even if I have to call up the hurricane to drag him there.
Well, this all sounds like a terribly bad idea.
I think it's going to be a lovely party.
And look, you've already gone through the whatever it costs route. Don't. What the fuck?
Yeah, Anouk, you killed 2 people. Like,
There are a few things so fucking bone chilling as a child's voice confidently saying, "I fixed it."
Also,
Yeah.
like the way that she's interacting with her friends and things like that, the whole time I was just thinking, well, this is going to go horribly wrong. Like, I can't wait until the school burns down, or, you know, some horrible nastiness like that.
Does seem pretty inevitable.
oh my god, I'm so excited for the rest of this.
How far through are we?
We've got another week and a half to go. So we will have all of next week.
Wow.
And then we have Monday off. And then we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And it finishes on
Ash is excited about that.
Yay! Yay, Ash!
And
It's getting so big.
It's so big. It's a beautiful story time, baby. Ooh, there's booze headed towards me. My darling, I would like.
you guys, that scene with the kissing, holy fucking shit.
Right. When she was like talking about his deft movements and his like lean, tough muscles in his back, I was like,
Oh my god! Like the little things, like her noticing the paint on his shirt is like just.
that. Okay, so I am fascinated that got to you, because when I read this, thank you, my darling. When I read this through before doing it for Storytime, that sentence when she was like, yeah, he has like streaks of paint on his overalls, that did it for me as well. I felt this like whole body kind of shudder go through me. I was like, what is that all about?
I think it's because it's so evocative of that like moment of tension between 2 people where you become hyper aware of every detail of the physical world and the person.
Yep.
And also, what do you do with dirty clothes? You take them off.
Ear.
Totally porno vibes.
While I empty an entire jar of Branston pickles down my jeans.
That would work. That would absolutely work on me. I'm not gonna lie.
On a completely unrelated note, I might go.
Before you go though, Frankie, you're so color coordinated with your background right now. It is so fucking aesthetically pleasing, like your color scheme today.
It's a very carefully curated thing that I have going on here. I'm so glad you noticed that, Cleric. Oh, we should say goodbye to the catch-up crew. Catch-up crew. I hope you enjoyed the session. May your communication be healthy and all of your overalls be paint streaked. Story.